Hey guys, Disaster Area here with another video. This one is of the finals of the previous tournament of Season 1, Tournament 1. Just like with the off-season tournament, it was myself against Blues. In the off-season tournament, I won 3-2. He's the only person to take me anywhere near that close so far in the tournament set. Although others have beaten me convincingly at times outside of a tournament setting. But really, just here to cover the set, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. Uh, at time of recording, it was almost 2 weeks ago that the game was played. We played very early in the week, and now it's the second tournament's begun and has nearly finished the first round. So it's been nearly 2 weeks. So it's not super fresh in my mind, which is nice. So yeah, let's just get into it. Starting with game one, I'm on the left there. For all of these, I'll put myself on the left and go from my perspective. We're going to go pretty quickly through these. As always, it's best of five. Best of five, first to three wins. So it's about getting 3 wins. It'll be at least 3 games, maybe more. Both because it's the final, and because my goodness, sorry, my brain's not completely with it. But yeah, obviously I'm covering it in part because it's the final, but partly because it was a pretty good set as far as they go. Now to open with, we had Muck against Waylord here. Waylord typically will like water spout, or potentially could explode. Muck, as you see here, decides to protect. I decided to protect, just to scout, burn some PP. I can't remember what team I was using, so we'll sort of figure that out as we go. But generally, Waylord does indicate some kind of balanced or offensive team. It's quite slow, so you might see it on like a paralysis-based team with like Sand Slash, which is how I've used it in the samples. This is probably what Blues has brought. But it could also be a lead on offense since it's got explosion with strong attacking power. Certainly not a bad shout. Muck can be used as a lead on offense. It is good against Fortress and fire types, and if it has focus punch, it's pretty good against Glalie as well. But oftentimes it's seen as a lead on more stallish teams, as often they don't have anything better besides perhaps throwing Fortress. So it's sort of one of those things that indicates it's probably a stall team, which I'm pretty keen on. So good chance that that's what it is. So I will try and like breeze through this a bit, but I also want to sort of take people through like the nuances of it. And you see Blastoise here, which does take a hefty chunk from Waylord. I'm not entirely sure if it was like the best move either. I'll change this to the calc, sneakily using pausing to transition things because he doesn't do with his bathroom breaks. You see there that Water Spout does do a hell of a lot to Muck, and also by default it's a little bit faster, base 60 versus base 50, so it would go fast and do a really huge amount of damage to Muck, as well as like the threat of self-destruct. So Blastoise does take it a little bit better. It's nowhere near as bulky, but it does resist it. So we see that 33 to 39. If we go back to the game, then we see here that it did 38. So it was a pretty high roll, but it's still taking that fine, and I can Hydro Pump or Roar or whatever. Scout, do a bit of damage, recover some of that HP, burn some Water Spout PP. But it just sort of shows that my team's not massively prepared for Waylord. If he wanted to, he could definitely try and push the issue with it throughout the game. But it looks like it's his own team since I haven't built any samples with non-lead Glalie. And he switches that straight into a Hydro Pump, which maybe was not the best move. I'm not sure what he was expecting, though. And it's slower as well. So Glalie is its base speed is slightly higher than Blastoise. Blastoise, you can see there, maxes out at 280 speed, and Glalie at 284. But if you're not running max speed on Glalie, which in my opinion you should be because of stuff like Blastoise, just gets outsped. So it does start off to a pretty convincing start for me. You can see there I've already healed up a lot of that damage from Whale. Net taken like 20%, which is not that much. Can come in again, rinse and repeat. And in comes Crobat, which is a free opportunity for me to get spikes, which I take advantage of with Fortress. It's why you don't tend to bring in Crobat early into the game. It's amazing in the late game. Crobat is a beast in this tier, but it is huge spikes bait, and this is that in action. It does of course get to bring Whale back in, so we do see like the rinse and repeat. Kind of funny with the water type rinsing, but with Wailord, which is a reasonable approach, but I've just gotten those spikes completely for free, which is not what you want to be doing ever, really, is it? So I Hydro Pump just to put some more pressure on it. He reveals Icy Wind, which is actually an interesting move as he gets to get off another water spot here with a bit more HP and so on, and it just puts a little bit of pressure. You can see there that like Wailord does actually constitute something of a threat. Blastoise doesn't really directly damage it that much. I roar it out, as you can see there. I'm quite scared of it. There's not a whole lot I can do about it at the moment. Blastoise typically runs like Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Roar, Rapid Spin. Spin is like the main useful thing that it does. So of course you fit that. Hydro for stab, Ice Beam hits Altaria and grass types, and while it doesn't have like perfect coverage at all with Water Stab, it's still really good. And I mean, you generally want your bulky water, even though Blastoise is not that bulky, it's still fairly bulky. You do want it to check Altaria, and then Roar helps it actually check Golduck, because with Calm Mind boosts up, like, what else is it doing? So it can keep Golduck at bay to a degree with the help of its partners. As you see, there's a Muck, so it's not the only Golduck check on this team. But yeah, in comes Crobat again. So it's a free switch to Fortress, but Wailord's almost definitely coming back in. Well, I do try and take advantage of it. We see as well from that damage, you couldn't see from the damage before because Sludge Bomb runs straight into an immunity, but that's not choice band to Crobat. That's probably like Sub Lychee or something. So, free spikes, we do then see the sub come up. I Toxic trying to catch Wailord coming in, as well as it's not a huge loss, as you can see, if I just let Crobat get up a sub and everything. It's, what's it going to do? Air Cutter for 15% just is not that impressive. And then I have like Steelix as well to follow up on this team. So I've just gotten 3 layers of spikes for free. I promise that the whole set is not a demolition like this at all. But we do see in this game the advantage in like team building and play shining through a bit. So Merc on Steelix is a position as well that favors Steelix, but Muck outspeeds and does hit it with Fire Blast, which does do a chunk. Earthquake will KO in return if he goes for it, which might help Crobat later on in the game. So it's a decision, but it's a key special wall, and then like Blastoise gets more dangerous and so on. And yeah, it's a trade-off that can be made. Oh, in fact, yeah, Steelix actually, mine, I tend to EV them quite fast. It goes faster than, it goes before Muck, and now with spikes up as well, it's KO'd next time it switches in. So I can Earthquake for fairly free damage. I get a bit of leftovers recovery actually for the fact that it doesn't get KO'd at least. Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't have like a huge amount to say that other than Muck switching out does mean that it's KO'd anyway, so it doesn't really matter that Earthquake into immunity. He gets to keep a sacrifice, but it wasn't a great trade-off for him at all. And in comes Crobat, which Steelix runs Rock Slide so that it doesn't run into problems against this, but sacrifices Muck there, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But he uses it to pivot in Wailord. Now, with Crobat lower like that, it means that next time he substitutes, he'll be in Lychee range, which means he's a bit more scary, especially with Steelix weakened. So there was something to weakening Muck like that, but it is quite a big trade-off. And it's still the Fortress as well, which it doesn't do much back to the Crobat, but when it's at like 5%, if I break the substitute, then HP Fire will KO. So it's Fortress is definitely still a problem for it. I decide here to take the water spout. Let's just calc quickly and see. I think I calc this in the game to be like, what's my chance of surviving that? Because I was interested. Um, so if we're saying, well, 47%, and this is max special attack water spout, which we saw from the high roll earlier that it must be like that strong. We see 15 to 18%. 56 is like the top damage, and I was at 20% coming in, so I knew actually that I'd survive there, which I think is a pretty nifty play. That, well, I mean, he could have if he had like surf or hydro pump, then he could have gone for it there and gotten a KO. So maybe it wasn't a perfect play, but definitely there was like a water move coming, and I could follow up with Muck afterwards if I really needed to, if it did reveal another water move and so on. But I get a free hydro pump. It does 46%. So even though it's resisted, I don't know if that's. Let's just check and sort of see like what kind of EVs that is, because on the standard one, because I run a lot of I run a bit of special defense on Wailord normally. You can see there it's doing like 24%. So if that's a 0, oh, I'm in torrent range, aren't I? I didn't think about that. Look at that. Okay. 40 to 50 without bulk investment, 36 to 42. You did 46, so I reckon that Blues was running not really much special defense on that at all. As you can see there, like, this resisted water spout with Torrent just did so much to it. It probably was a roll to KO depending on his EVs, but this is also why you should run a bit of special defense on Pokemon with these really dramatic stat spreads where there's these really high HP, really low defenses. Like on Blissey with defense, everybody knows we run like max defense on Blissey and don't bother investing in HP and so on. I don't think Blues is investing in HP, but you've probably got like EVs in like attack or speed or something like that instead of going like quite heavily, well, putting a bit of EVs into defense, special defense, because Wailord's quite a slow Pokemon anyway. The speed's not bad, but there's definitely like these trade-offs here. And I think that it's worth going for a bit of bulk investment on these Pokemon with like these kind of stats because you get so much out of it. Just like if you compare like the simple numbers, 126 versus 149, like that's like a 20% increase with like 90 odd EVs. Whereas if you go with like the attack 216 to 239, that's more like a 10% increase. So you get so much more bang for your buck when you invest a lot in these low stats. And yeah, that's just like a little lesson. There's going to be like a lot of these sort of lessons throughout the set that we can look at in terms of like how to EV your Pokemon and stuff as well. There's and see there as well like how, if I'd got a slightly higher roll, the Wailord would have gone down, but if you had like a little bit of special defense investment, it would have been fine. And here it was only just barely fine. He used Water Spout again, which is strange. Rather than like self-destruct. I don't know what set he was running, but it clearly didn't do much here. I don't know if I sacrifice Blastoise here or if I go Steelix, but Crobat, a mild threat. Blastoise isn't super useful, so probably I go and sacrifice it at this point. His spike is gone. One like special attacker that it can check is already down. It's not going to be that much more useful. It's quite low. I do have other special checks, and I don't want to give Crobat any free room just in case it could start powering through the Steelix. So it does come in, and we see a Sandslash. So he's packing a Spinner, so game's far from over, and you can see Blastoise actually would have been nice against this, but the team, of course, pretty much every good team should have a ground resist of some kind or ground immunity. So presumably bringing that in here. I think on the sequence of Misdreavus, and in it comes that also spin blocks, which is really nice. There's no item revealed, so I probably should have clocked that in the. I don't know if I noticed that initially in the game, but sword stances here. The substitute was a bit aggressive or a bit of a bad decision. I Psychic, and then he ends up in Salabberry Rage. So I very nearly scuffed this up. You can see here, this Rock Slide just barely fails to KO. If I hadn't substituted, then that would have sort of been a fairly safe guarantee. But here at this point, game's effectively over. Um, I can just attack into Absol, do like a good chunk of damage, and end the game like that. So that's how game one ends. It was a bit of a threat from the SD Absol, but otherwise, I think that was a pretty stable, comfortable game. Now on to game two. Oh my goodness, I have the music on by accident. That's how I turn it off. I have desktop audio muted, so you didn't hear it, but I just got a bit of a shock. I was like, oh, I forgot that this thing has music. What did I don't know what I just did, but um, all right. Mark against Rapidash. So this is kind of an interesting matchup. Against most variants of Rapidash, Mark is really good against like Subpass and so on. It's Rapidash can't really do much to it, but it does learn Hypnosis. So if there's like a Hypnosis, Overheat, Flamethrower, HP Grass set, which is something that I've experimented with a tiny bit, then you could go for it against Mark. Even then, it's not really great. So, but it should be said that if he's running like a standard sample team here, then the only one with lead Rapidash is Subpass paired with like Lanoon and some other offensive things. So it's a pretty dangerous team. It's really good against like paralysis spam in particular. You tend to be Lanoon weak. But just in general, it's not a bad pick against me to put pressure on. So a Sludge Bomb here, just to sort of see what it does. You know, maybe he's fish or something, who knows. But given that he does substitute, and it's like, well, clearly, it almost certainly is the Subpass team. And that team relies on Aggron to check Mark. So, a HB ground, and it's not that team. It's something that Blues himself has built with the Kabutops on it, which is still hit by the HP ground. But it's pretty unusual, and in this game we do actually see it do something. So, it's Sword Stances, I think, as I switch in Whiskash. So, I think Kabutops has gotten a. It's a bit of a strange mon because, like, on Rain it's a bit weird, and outside of Rain it's also a bit weird. It's got like Flail, Sword Stance, but then there's also like problems like physically defensive Whiscash and stuff. So I don't know. It's a bit of a strange mon. It's certainly got some potential, and here we see the end Flail set doing some work. Um, I wonder what his coverage is because with Flail, if you run it like alongside Rock Slide, then you do like nothing at all to Aggron, like nothing. For example, or to Steelix. But if it's like Surf, then like you do, but then you do nothing to Mistravus and so on. So it's an interesting set. It's got some limitations, but in this game, it simply manages to get off a flail. And no nonsense. I just KO it with Whiskash. I took an absolute ton of damage, which shows that the set's got some merit. I don't know if I maybe had a better option there. The flail was like pretty clear, but maybe I didn't have like a Mistravus. Maybe I didn't want to gamble as well because it's got like the Salad Berry, so it's like +2 if it is like Rock Slide. Then all of a sudden, and that's like really nice. So it's kind of best not to mess around with it. And like this set definitely has some potential. I don't know if Blues' team does the trick, but it certainly has potential, as seen by the fact that it just did gigantic amounts of damage to the Swiss Cash. So in comes Hitmontop, which is not something we've seen much of, and I don't think is very threatening. I think as an offensive fighting type, Hitmonlee's generally better for being faster, having limber. It's like faster than Goldark, which is nice. Hitmontop is more for a defensive spinner, really. Potentially like a bulky bulk upset, which I think might be what he's going for here. But you know, I just go Fortress because like look at that damage, it's just pretty pathetic. I try and Toxic it, thinking that it might be. Sorry, coughing. Maybe I need some ginger tea, I think. Oh, but yeah, we see sub, bulk, high jump kick, hidden power, probably HP ghosts. Which you probably went for instead of high jump kick because high jump kick into protect equals a lot of damage loss, a lot of HP loss for the hit on top. So I toxic. Um, if it's not substitute, then it's great, and I put like bulk up on a timer. But since we see substitute, then that's stopped, and I have to find another way around this. I do, however, still have muck, so I opt for a spike here. I'm not sure if I actually played around it with muck. No, I ended up going to Zatu, which also really doesn't care. Just quad resist to fighting. Outspeed's got stab psychic. Uh, he tries to substitute on the potential psychic. You can see with the lack of item as well, there's probably also like a Salak berry on this. I wish up to Fortress to heal it up. I'm like, oh, I guess I'll rinse and repeat. I guess. It was just like, oh, I got the spike completely for free, so it was not bad. Yeah, and we see Subpass going, and he manages to get in Armaldo, which with Whiscash really weakened is actually pretty damn scary. So this team setup's really weird with like these double rock types, which they don't check much beyond Muck. And I'm like, I just need to get rid of this Armaldo, but maybe I should have kept like Muck around for hit on top. It's tough to say, but like I really needed to heal up Whiscash as much as I could. Uh, yeah. Could well be like sword stance as well. I'm faster with Surf. He goes for a rapid spin, and like doesn't seem to have achieved much. Maybe he should have earthquaked or something instead. But maybe just sort of stay in and keep pushing for a bit. We sort of see like this game is a lot about like this. There's stuff I advise against like double stacking like rock types. I don't think is good. Running HPI set tile, which we'll later see that this is, are all pretty flawed in certain ways, and this can be exploited. But your average player isn't necessarily going to be able to take advantage of it, or they might not have the team for it as well. But I think in this game, I sort of prove why a lot of the rules that I might talk about or have in my head are rules. Like, what's the reason? Like, why do you not like stack rock types? Why do you make sure your Pokemon aren't just like completely vulnerable to Fortress? I'm not sure why I didn't. I guess I didn't have like a better switch into Rapidash because I sat Muck, which was definitely did show that like the subpass into Amaldo was pretty threatening. Which okay, maybe there's something to look at like after the end flail. Yeah, but so there was some offensive momentum actually there, and we're still seeing like the ideas. I don't think they're like good ideas, and um I think the team as a whole is like that great, but we see it's still providing some threat, like the unusual threats and so on. But I have a lantern here as well, so I'm not sure why I set to take that damage. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I guess I'd wanted to prevent just like a free sub on it. Was probably the thinking. Um, Now I can't really substitute again as well with like that damage. It's now. I mean, maybe it will at some point, but I go to Zatu, Hero Gale on like the Hitmontop and Wish Up, and decide to keep Zatu around since it's my Hitmontop answer, so I do need it. Much as it would be nice to sort of like sacrifice and go to Whiscash, but because it's HP Ice, Fortress just doesn't care. Um, and I toxic as well, catching the Rapidash thing. Like you're not going to be able to get away with going for a subpass or anything. Hidden power, grasses, but Rapidash is pretty weak, and like this Lantern's very especially bulky, so it really does nothing. Um, so yeah, he just sort of ends up sacrificing Rapidash and gets Sceptile in, but in comes Aggron. And you see, like, one thing that is to be said is that when you do stat like this, is you really do put a lot of pressure on like a single answer. So in this case, on Whiscash, which is at 40%, and it's like obviously like a real focal point here. But At the same time, like there's certain weaknesses that are really significant. So, like Rain might be like annoying or Golduck. For this kind of team, like Sceptile's really the only proper Golduck check on there. So definitely, I don't think the team's great for like those reasons, but you can see like at the same time why it's important in offense when you can't just like trap your answers. Why you need to pat Pokemon that have similar answers. So we've put a lot of pressure on my Whiscash on this in this game, and I ended up deciding to just like spike up on this Aggron. Um, I'm not sure if that's like the wisest move, but yeah, 2 layers of spikes. It's not bad. I'm like putting in chat that like I messed up, and I think I was probably a bit too greedy, trying to push things against this Aggron, but um, just Earthquake and still I sort of show what Whiscash is made out of. It is similar to Swampert in OU. It's got like a little bit less offensive pressure, and it doesn't have the interesting options like it doesn't learn Refresh or Roar. So it's very like one-dimensional Earthquake, Surf, Protect, Ice Beam, and Refresh. No Toxic, like the 5 moves you can see on it. It doesn't even learn Hydro Pump. So on like some more offensive teams that rely on Whiscash, they'll actually put like quite a few EVs into special attack, but still run Surf because it's the best it's got. Um, so in comes Sceptile, and it's free chance to protect and keep Whiscash as healthy as possible because Sceptile doesn't present like that big of a threat. It's got like Overgrow Leaf Blade here, and it's got Endeavor with Subpataya. And maybe I was like a bit too aggressive. I think this game sort of showed like why you maybe need to be a little bit more careful with like when you spike up, because I did give my opponent a lot of free turns, maybe a bit overconfidently, and then yeah, I completely messed up there. To be fair, and I posted this in the chat afterwards. I did have like a roll here, but I don't think it should have ever really been like this close. Oh, actually, the reason I went for 3 spikes, I guess, was sort of thinking that I can roar the Sceptile out and KO it. Martina has Roar, and I'll show the calc on screen. If we just do this, if we go Sceptile against Marina, we stick it down to 1%, we stick that at max, and we take it to +1. You see there, 6.3% chance to 1-hit KO. So really, that's actually less chance than it critical hitting because it's a high crit move. You've got almost a 12% chance of critting. So he does manage to break through there with a bit of luck. But even if I did like get to phase it out, the game wasn't over. So probably I should have just like HP fired with Fortress against the Sceptile instead of going for the 3rd Spikes layer. He does still have Armaldo to spin with and stuff. So yeah, I think I messed up in a few spots there, and it showed. So yeah, it's an interesting game. Enflail Cabotops ultimately did a lot of damage. I'm not sure what else I sort of should have done against it. Maybe with this team, it does just sort of. Maybe I should have gone Fortress actually. Let's just hop in the cat real quick and just like try and understand where I messed up. Maybe if I messed up. If we go to +2, 1 HP with Flail against Fortress. Yeah, that's the thing, is it does actually do a lot to Fortress while you can't really switch that in either. Maybe I could have gone to Fortress and like Toxic, but if it had a Rock Slide as well, then then I still have issues. Yeah, the Fortress definitely worked. I think sets like that are hard to make work consistently and build with consistently. At least I find it challenging too. But there's merit to it, and so even yeah, Blues ultimately wins this game. we're 1-1, and we're half an hour into this video, so hopefully I can speed up a little bit. But I imagine this is going to be quite a long video at this rate. Let's move on to game 3 then. So 1-1. What do we bring? I bring a Typhlosion, so I've gone more aggressive here. The first couple games I brought more balanced Stally teams. And yeah, in comes with Typhlosion against Golduck. So Typhlosion should run here. Fairly clearly, Hydro Pump 1-hit KOs. Typhlosion does 2-hit KO Golduck, and if like a cheeky one were to try and Hypnosis, as it carries Lumberry, that would favor Typhlosion. So I feel like you really should Hydro Pump here, even though you could Hypnosis, just in case your opponent's just an absolute idiot. And just like avoiding being cheesed, but I don't make that kind of play, and I think Blues knows that. So we do see him go for a Hypnosis there, and I bring in Lantern, and he doesn't push the issue, since if he misses again and I Thunderbolt into him, then he's got problems, and he decides it's best to hold on to it for later. In comes Sceptile as I Thunderbolt, because I don't know if he's going to go for it or not. I mean, Hypnosis, Golduck, you have to respect it. You can't mess around. If you let it get rolling, it will, and it could sweep you. So I give up tempo to Sceptile, but it was responsible. And, perfectly good play on his end. But I could have Thunder Waved as well, I guess is the other thing I could have done. I mean, yeah, you could run Lum, lead Hypnosis Golduck, and it's not a bad idea. So again, like Thunderbolt's more honest, but there's like a risk of it. So I don't know that the Sceptile switch is the best, but it worked out. It wasn't unreasonable. Pokemon continues, and I decide to go Typhlosion. I get Elite Seed Miss. I don't know if it was really the right move to get a Typhlosion here, compared to something else. Obviously, it does resist Grass. It's not like a terrible option, but it doesn't have Leftovers, Recovery. Like every team will have like multiple Grass resists because it's not hard to fit them. But it works out, and he decides to stay in. And I Thunder Punch anticipating a Golduck switch. Sorry. It can be weird playing against offense and with offense sometimes. That's kind of why you do substitute, and why I probably should have Fire Blasted is because about keeping you honest. But like if I Fire Blast, I can miss as well. So like if I HP Ice, then he can Leech Seed and still go going. So I don't know. It's sort of why you don't go like Typhlosion here is just better to go like on this team. I think I've got a Crobat, so it would be better to go to that. And even though like I probably get spiked on, which is not great, I can then like go to my Typhlosion and start like putting pressure on, and it will be pretty scary. So ups and downs to it. In the end, what probably sort of should have happened in the first place ends up happening, and he gets Leech Seed. And then I do switch in Crobat, so I made some mistakes here. The sequences were very strange and interesting. And then I Air Cutter and I miss Elite Seed. It's just like, just a bit chaotic. But the reason you run Air Cutter as opposed to Wing Attack or Aerial Ace, even it's only 55 base power, is the high critical hit ratio, and this is like a PK Leech idea. To try use it because it's only a little bit weaker, but with the high critical hit ratio, it's like higher variance, more chance of like that high damage move. Even though I don't know if the average damage is higher, it probably is slightly, but the threat of doing like 50% to Fortress as it comes in an eighth of the time, like 12% of the time, is pretty good. With Leech Seed up, it's a bit of a different ball game because then even if I do crit, then it's like still like 38%. So Fortress could come in here pretty freely. So I might double. I don't remember if I doubled the Fortress to Typhlosion or if I stayed in and Air Cutted. But Sceptile really shouldn't be staying in here. I do double to Typhlosion. He goes Tauros, which is interesting as well. So if we just pause for a second there and understand that play. It was actually a very reasonable play if we go into the calc because it's got Intimidate. So no, it's just go Taurus, it's just go Choice Band. It will be the same damage either way. And Crobat with Air Cutter. Let's put the HP back to 100. And apply Intimidate, and then you're talking like 25% to 30%. Here's another upside of Air Cutter is there's a 1 in 8 chance that a critical hit and almost one hit KO it. So again, that's actually like another little upside is it does like punish the Taurus player a bit better, but it would have done like 25%. So I don't miss out on a huge lot by not staying and attacking, and I think the double made sense, but it doesn't quite work out the way it intended, as he decides it's not time to spike, or maybe he doesn't even have a fortress. Who knows? I think he has a team with a fortress on it. So he goes to Taurus. Of course, it's a free earthquake, and you'd rather sort of earthquake than return because I'm not going back to Crobat there. It's just like a bit mad because return is still free or double edge. Fortress can come in and spike up. And we see 28% from to Fortress. If we go into the calc, always calc with Taurus. 28 is sort of like a min roll really with Choice Band, and then compared to the mix set, talking like 23% max. So we know that that's Choice Band Taurus, which means it's a free spike. Super important with Taurus account straight away as soon as you've got damage you can work with, because Choice Band Taurus and Mixed Taurus are very different beasts. Choice Band Taurus you punish with your resists, your immunities, your Fortress, your Crobat, your Aggron, your Misdreavus, and so on. Mixed Taurus eats almost all of those for breakfast, but has different issues like certain resists that are maybe like less sturdy to a Choice Band return, but still take it. Will handle the mix set better, like Credilli and like Armaldo might have like recovery, like no extra weaknesses that the mix set can exploit, because that's like what the mix set's about is like adding coverage and really using that. But like Clefable as well, Torkoal, Whiscash, like these generic physical walls as well are a lot better against that. So seeing that, I know free chance to spike. I take it and he punishes it with his own fortress. So this is pretty good for me in the fortress and fortress thing, where it's like I've got my own one in and I spike up, and even though I took a bit of damage, it's not that much. And if we like HP Fire War, then I'm favored here. I don't know if I do decide to switch out though, and he spikes, which is sensible enough. So ultimately, I probably should have stayed in HP Fire just to actually taken advantage out of the fact that he's switching Fortress in. Um, but getting Typhlosion as well against this team is also like a huge deal. So it's completely reasonable. It's got Lumberry as well, so Toxic won't be a problem. I mean, nobody with Toxic there. It's a little bit, it's crazy and it's not rewarding. Um, but if they HP Fire or if they Spike or they Spin, then Fortress Typhlosion isn't too bad. So I can Fire Blast pretty freely here, because as we'll see, Fire Blast plus Thunder Punch with the layer of spikes up KO's goal. Like, you need the spikes layer though to actually get the KO, and he uses that to pivot and get set targeting. But the Golduck's a lot weaker, and I get a lucky paralysis on the set target. I'm not sure quite where he was going with that anyway. Even if he doesn't get paralyzed, I mean maybe he's going to like to substitute try and fish for a Fire Blast miss once, but you see his dice. This is why, like, even though maybe the Fortress could have spun there, I was still getting a lot of value out of being able to bring a Typhlosion there. So maybe he needed to go like Golduck there instead and go for another Hypnosis or something like that. Or, yeah, so that sequence ends up hurting quite a bit. Obviously, the paralysis hurts, but basically I get a KO with Typhlosion, and then Taurus comes in, it's banded. I could go Fortress again, or I might have a normal resist hiding. And I do just go Fortress. It's a clean punish. Like, the worst he can do is Earthquake, or double out, which he does, and he makes sense. And you've got to play like that to stay in the game, because at this point I've got a KO. I've got some problems for him, but this team I have a Sableye, so there's more problems. This Sableye is so good against Kadabra Taurus cores. Is part of what makes it so great. And like this team, even though it looks like kind of funny, it's like why is it like Sableye instead of like Mistravas? And, like why have we got these like fast offensive threats than like a Sableye? And it's because like Sableye is so good in like those specific matchups, and it's a viable option because of that, like the compression as well. And I can Shadow Ball here and not really achieve like a whole lot. Um, or like knockoff. Yeah, knockoff because Kadabra is not really staying in there. Knockoff is fairly through progress. If he goes to Fortress, then that's awesome. And then I can just like taunt and like sit here and click Shadow Ball. It doesn't like achieve much, but he ends up deciding to sacrifice gold, sacrificing Fortress for nothing basically to bring in Golduck, avoiding like a knockoff. My response here, I decided to go Lantern as the Ice Beams, anticipating potentially that I'd stay and go to Crobat to absorb Hypnosis. So there's a lot going on there. Which is how it can be with Golduck. With like this Lantern Crobat core is really cool because like you can potentially absorb the sleep with Crobat and it's still a very scary threat. And then like Lantern really does reliably handle Golduck, or you can just use Lantern as Lantern, and just sort of what I opted for here. See if he does go for Hypnosis. He does, misses Thunderbolt. Hypnoduck is so broken, guys. And in comes Kadabra. I just really comfortable position with Sableye. I'm not sure quite why I Thunderbolted there. I guess I sort of saw that like Golduck is not that important, and maybe I sort of anticipated that he would be doing something, anything to take advantage of Sableye. And yeah, it's just like a game-ending Thunderbolt with paralysis, and just that momentum. Like this team, I really like this team. The gosh, what's the last? I think the last is Whiskash. So it's like a really, it's got the best spiker, or like a more defensive spiker. It's got like a lot of Pokemon that had like the scariest single threats in the metagame, like Tauros and Kadabra, Golduck, Aggron, whatever. Like Croat, like those Pokemon are really well handled defensively. But then it's also got like two of the scariest. It's got like the scariest breaker almost in like Typhlosion, or one of the scariest. That can sort of rinse and repeat and really punish his fortress and just like really good coverage and works so well with spikes. And then like Croat, which is like the best cleaner. So it's like a really nice mix, a really nice balance. Even though it like might look a little funky at first, I think that the apparent pace mismatches aren't as bad as it might look at all. And the team actually flows really nicely in practice. So I'm up 2-1. Game 4 next. And can Blue survive? He needs to win 2 games in a row now to clinch this. He's been playing all right. He's been playing all right. We'll see what happens. Maybe there's a game 5, maybe there isn't. I go Torkoal. So this team is quite a unique team. It's got Torkoal, there's a Jumpluff. I mean, it's a well-known sample, and this is a team like when other people play, it goes really horribly because it's a really unintuitive team, and I think I mess up with it in this game as well, quite a bit. You've got Torkoal that really is your physical check as well as your fire type, and it's got Protox, Flamethrower Explosion. It's got like a lot of tools, and then it's like Jumpluff, which is like a Spikes Abuser, Subcon Mind Mistravus as well. And you see though that there's one turn that turns out to be just like a huge mistake, but maybe it's not completely obvious at the time. But certainly in retrospect, I think it was a big error. So in comes Fortress, which is quite a nice synergy here. Instead of trying to push with Golduck, which you can do and it can work out, just goes Fortress, 3 spikes. I go to my own fortress, got a bit of disadvantage. He Toxic's aiming for Torkoal, so he decides like actually it's an important target, and I really should have clocked that oh he really cares about like poisoning Torkoal, rather than spiking it. I think spikes is always like a better play there. Um, just you'd need a spike slayer. Um, so I end up coming in basically for free. We both spike up. I hidden power fire a bit, as does he. And I just I ended up going to Torkoal, which is slower than Fortress. It does come in safely on this, and then I like flamethrower, like anticipating like spin or explosion. Oh, spin or toxic or switching out. Just wanted to just sort of be forcing, but he explodes. And this, in my opinion, loses me the game. This sample team, I know there's like a league group, but a lot of it is physically offensive, and Torkoal's really key against that. Fortresses as well, but the thing is, it's not just that. I had a really good option here, which was to just go Misdreavus instead and subcom mind, or like keep fighting with my own fortress, or like rapid spin, or yeah, I think Misdreavus was probably the best option. So then just like more Pokemon gets played, and I keep my Torkoal and so on. So I end up just like dancing around, like trying to keep Torkoal as healthy as I can, because this team's just like so threatening. Well, Torkoal is just like really crucial, and I come in and I get off a spin. My Fortress is just like really weak now, so even though Fortress is like really good in this matchup, there's like a Crobat here, there's a Taurus in the back as well, and it should be really good here, but it's just not because of taking all that damage, which is fine. He knows that I then was gonna go like Lantern here, and I'm go Missy here. I can't see from the damage like what I'm up against, but I know the team and I know that there's choice band, so I get a free sub. And I get to one-on-one with Kadabra a bit, and this doesn't go great, I have to say. I think, I stay in, I Thunderbolt here. I really should have, probably should have gone with Jump Love here or something, or oh, this team has Spadef Whiscash. Like, yeah, like, why was I staying in here? I end up sacking Fortress instead and then going Whiscash, and it's just oh, I go Jump Left actually. It was just wasteful play because the team has Spadef Whiscash, which is like a really weird set, but it has it because it's a reliable Kadabra answer. I really should have played it that way, played it by the book. Instead of just sacking Fortress, I could have kept Fortress around for later. Yeah, I guess I thought I would like trade with Kadabra there, and that Missy's health isn't important, which it isn't really. But well, it kind of can be versus like, yeah, uh, yeah. I mean, I messed up. And then like Crobat comes in, and like now I don't really have proper fodder. I've got this Whiscash, which takes a slow one because it's Spadef. It takes a lot, and it gets poisoned as well. And yeah, just things go from bad to worse here. And like Sceptile's annoying for this team. Misdreavus can help, but like I really need Torkoal alive, and then I'm like, well, Whiscash is not actually that important, and I kind of just like don't want to let this set tile make any progress. And then I go Torkoal here trying to keep Whiscash. It's just like mistake after mistake. Like I needed to keep Torkoal as healthy as possible because I mean it doesn't like beat CV Taurus, but it helps. It resists Steel and Ghost and takes nothing from HP Ghost. So it, alongside Misdreavus with the Protect, can handle CB Taurus. It can take some attacks from Crobat if I really need it to. Like, Whiscash is important, but maybe I should, I don't know, could I have, like, sacked Jumpluff maybe? Like, that's maybe what I should have done, because it's not that good in this matchup. Taurus speed ties it, Crobat outspeeds, Sceptile outspeeds. I have a bit of a harder time against Golduck maybe, but yeah, I should have kept Fortress around so I had like a proper sack there. I shouldn't have let Torkoal take that explosion, and because of that, all of a sudden there's just like all of this pressure on me. Like this team, it is a good team if you play impeccably. But you make a couple mistakes, you get exploded on like the wrong Pokemon, you handle the threat in a way you're maybe not supposed to. You end up like sacrificing something when you didn't need to, and it just compounds, which is like a problem with like stall teams sometimes as well. If I mean, there is a lot of overlap on like this kind of team, like defensively. There's a few different ways to handle the same threats, which is handy. But at the same time, you kind of need to be really precise and understand like what exactly is important. And this whole game, I just end up like trying to do something. I just like end up getting overwhelmed. So credit to Blues for playing the team like effectively and going for that explosion, taking advantage of that mistake, and then just keeping the pressure on. And ultimately, he did it pretty well. And it's just game. It's just game. So I protect, and then I don't know why I didn't protect there, but at the same time, it doesn't make a difference. It's choice Bentoros. Like I'm dying. I'm dying. It's just he's playing around the Wizhash like it's Fizz Death actually, but um, it's just game. It's just game. We're on to the fifth and final game then. Blues, me, 2-2. The last tournament I beat him 3-2. Willie beat me 3-2. On to game 5. For all the marbles, if he wins this, he becomes the first official tournament winner in ADV 50, rather than me, which, well, let's see if he can do it. We have Aggron against Rapidash, so it could be his team from earlier, it could be the subpass team. Aggron lead, it has become a bit rarer. It's not on many of the samples. It's like very much like a stallish, balance-ish kind of lead, or on like Paraspam. But it is a good lead. It's great against Glalie. They like almost never run EQ, which is about the only thing that kind of messes it up. It can one hit KO back with Rock Slide. It has Toxic Taunt, and attacks for Fortress. Against like lead counter Fortress, you might have some problems. It's not good against Golduck, and it's not great against Fire types, so it's got some downsides, but that's what it is good at least as being good against the Spikers. Not so great against other stuff. So we see here Rapidash, so we see a sub. The implication is sub pass here. Worth noting that Hypnosis and Baton Pass isn't possible together on Rapidash, so it's got one or the other. And it's more likely to be sub pass if we see substitutes. So comes in, I seismic toss. I'm lucky and it doesn't paralyze me with the static, which has a 1 in 3 chance. I go Valplume. And you can see like quite clearly, I'm running like a paralysis based team, and he's running the Lanoon sample. So I stun Spore here. I can't let Lanoon come in and not at least get paralyzed, which will let me handle it. It'll run Lumberry, which makes it really annoying, as there's some Pokemon you can just cleanly set up on because of that. And when it's at +6, it's very hard to stop. Paralysis Fan in particular really struggles because it's like hard to fit like Credilli or Armada. I mean, you can fit them, but like often they just don't, and they don't typically run like Sable either, which even though it can't do much back to Lanoon, at least can live a hit. It don't tend to run Fortress as well, which is like the most common answer to Lanoon to see. Even though again it doesn't do like a huge amount back. You may have to sacrifice against it, but HU5 does like 15. It's enough in tandem with like hitting it as it sets up, is the thing. And that's really what that's about. So with the light screen up, I can't just like Giga Drain and hope. I have to like stun Spore. Which, I mean, the thing is, there's no reason to keep Electrode in. Maybe I could have gone to my Sand Slash there and put pressure on that way. That would have been a better play, but I ended up getting it in against Aggron and getting a free Earthquake. I want to see, does he have like a Sceptile or Meganium or what? I mean, this team generally runs Sceptile, but even so, like the chip on like Sceptile or Golduck as he goes through here is pretty good to get. So even though it takes some damage on Sun Slash, which is not great, it is pretty frail. But paralyzing Aggron and sleeping Electro, I've made a lot of progress early on here. The thing is, like this matchup's a bit weird. Basically, what we end up seeing is Lanude's amazing against this team if it sets up, it wins. Clefable's amazing against this team. It's just good against everything. Um, and here I like go for the stun spore on Golduck. This team is like amazing versus Golduck as well, actually, which is like one thing to note. It's there's like a lantern in the back as well, so it really doesn't care about Golduck, but like Golduck as well has just gotten ruined here. I do Giga Drain just like for safety. I don't try and catch the Rapidash. I go Clefable as well. It's pretty safe. Like Flamethrower does 25. If it's got Fire Blast, it's just like 30. With like leftovers, then that's like 25. It's not a huge amount of damage. And the Encore there was a mistake. I should have just Seismic Tossed. It prevents Substitute as well. But it makes it a progress. It's the downside is like fishing for paralysis with Electrode. But like I know there's a Lanoon, so the Encore PP is really crucial, so I shouldn't be wasting it. So that's like a small mistake, and you see like a few of these, but you'll see eventually as a certain thing that ends up being crucial as well. Like Suzy Toss would have prevented Golduck from coming in there. I would have just KO'd it and seriously start making some hay. So yeah. Instead, I then do that. I come back into Clefable here. Is I could have also gone like Lantern, but again, like Sceptile comes in. And this Golduck causes me more trouble than it needs to. I got quite lucky against it earlier. This Aggron, we've seen no leftovers, so it's like choice banned. I mean, I know it's that on the sample, but it just doesn't do enough damage. I've Seismic Toss because if it's Focus Punch, I can't do something else. I can't like Thunder Wave. But yeah, Seismic Toss is a free KO there if I go for it. I just soft boiled, keep myself healthy. It's also perfectly reasonable, gives me more flexibility. And then I think I Encore against a Sceptile, and it's like, well, pretty free. Just keep Seismic Toss. I think the Vileplume's been sent to sleep. Maybe I should have like let Lantern take the sleep. I mean, I shouldn't have let Vileplume get slept in the first place, really. Because I should have Seismic Tossed to prevent the Golduck coming in, but okay. Anyway, Vileplume's asleep, so the Sceptile's a bit more threatening, but Because at the same time, you see, this Clefable is just absolutely hell to play with. And the only thing the Blues really has going for him is Encore's low PP, and maybe also paralyzing it with or exploding it with Electro. He does get unlucky, actually. He was favored for me to, at some point, get paralyzed by static with the seismic tosses. But then, like, in comes Sand Slash. And, like, this is also putting in, like, a huge threat every time it comes in. Like, Earthquake, like, it does 40% to Sceptile, which is a resist. Like, Sceptile's really strong. It just needs some paralysis support, and this game is getting it, so I'm looking really good, it has to be said. But Lanoon can just turn things like that. Can just be like that. So there's always that threat, and I'm just a bit cavalier, but I get off a heal bell as well here. Maybe I think he was sort of like anticipating like a Dragon Claw or something there. I don't know if he could have maybe tried to go Lanoon here. But I do sort of get a bit too relaxed around this this Lanoon. And, does he go to it here? There's been some opportunities, but, I go Clefable, and so on. Pokemon gets played. I don't know, maybe I should have gone like Vileplume, but it's because there's not much that this Sceptile can do to it, and HP5 plus Giga Drain does do 50% to Lanoon, so I don't know. Pokemon's played, but like Clefable's a bit more threatening. There we go. Golduck's finally down, so I don't have to worry about sleep anymore. Encore again here is completely safe and necessary, but you see I'm down to 3 PP. If I hadn't wasted that one earlier, I'd have been at 4, but so imagine if I had extra. So I go Sand Slash again, and he pushes. Like, the one thing that he's really got going for him besides Loon is Sceptile being threatening. And there's maybe these opportunities that could be taken. Like, if he doubles Lanoon in on Vileplume or in on Altaria, then he's winning almost immediately. but I just sort of stay in here and keep hidden power firing. I think at some point I stun spore and catch the Rapidash, which is just like yeah, just like look at that. It was just like a beautiful little prediction. I don't know if it was like necessary. I probably had to go for something like that at some point, but then like in comes Fable and yeah, maybe I should have gone to like Sand Slash instead and gotten a free Earthquake. I don't know. There's definitely some times where I've like made some mistakes. I don't get paralyzed again by Ecstatic. I do have like Heal Bill, of course, like available to me, so it's not completely the end of the world if I do get paralyzed. You still got 3 and 4 chances of moving when you are paralyzed. But yeah, I go Sand Slash again and keep Earthquaking. But like the set tile, even though it takes like a huge chunk, it's still potent. It's still potent. It has to be said. But he manages to double in on the Vileplume. It's like, let's go back. All of a sudden, we've got critical turns. It's like, oh, nothing's happening. Earthquake. And then as I go into Vileplume, I'm careless. He doubles in there. If I'd gone to Clefable instead, then he can't set up here. And just look at that. Just beautifully set up. A Giga Drain. I have to hope for a crit. Game is like basically over. I have to stall the extreme speed PP. So we used one earlier, so it's at 6. I've got this immunity here to hidden power ground here, but I make a horrendous choke and I just sacrifice Altaria here to extreme speed. Maybe like going for him to predict. But the thing is, he really is favored to win here, even though I could, in theory, if I make the call right every time on E speed and HP ground, I could stall him out of that and then beat him up with like Aggron or with Altaria and just take a Shadow Ball. But well, here I sat my ground immunity, so I'm just getting swept. It's taking too much damage from it, but I'd have to get the call right every time, and it's kind of on me a bit more than him to make it correct because each time I've got to switch. Each time he has a safe play every turn, because every time he gets it wrong, he gets another chance. When getting it wrong is just hitting what's in front of you. Whereas every time if I get it wrong, then like that's the game. Like is this the turn that he predicts? So in like a game theory sense, he's favored, even though probabilistically it's it's probably more even. I guess I don't know, but yeah, he's favored. All I can say is, my God, does he sweep? And was there nothing I could do? And I just like had 4 Pokemon. I had a completely healthy team, pretty much. Like Clefable was like a bit weak, but like nothing on this team leaves a +6 Lanoon attack if it's the right attack. So there's nothing I could do. It's just nothing I could do. After I sacked Altaria there, he was just favored. He was just favored. So what I really need to do is like also like get in Sand Slash more, as well, and like Rock Slide maybe at some point the Clefable, but like I made those small mistakes, but really it was about like can he double in at the right time, and eventually he got it. He got it, and that's what this team having a bad matchup here means. And I just had to like push with Clefable as much as I could, and I just didn't quite manage it. And that, my friends, is how Blues is the first ADV 50 season tour winner. And in tournaments so far, if we include the off-season one, with 5-5. So he's been keeping me even. And to be honest, even though I lost, I'm pretty happy to see him win. For the tier's sake, the fact that someone can beat me in a best of 5, which is no joke, that's really good to see. Of course, it's like luck and match up and all these things, but he still did it. And I don't think it. Honestly, it didn't feel like a hacky series at all. It felt like one of the cleanest series of Pokemon I've ever played. I mean, there was like one game where I really got like some nice luck at a couple points, but it felt like it was really decided on like the player skill and like to a lesser degree like also the matchups. So it was just a really interesting set. And yeah, I'm just happy to see someone other than me able to win. Of course, like as a competitor, I want to win all the time, but as someone who's like responsible for growing this tier and seeing it develop, I want to see other players pushing it to new heights. And Blues is certainly at like the forefront of that. He's not the only player, but he's definitely at the forefront, and I'm excited to see who's going to win the season, me or him or someone else maybe. So that's it for the video. It's been about an hour covering 5 games. I don't think that's too bad. I hope you enjoyed. You can join the Discord. The link will be in the description. Like, comment, subscribe, all that cool stuff. See you in the next one. Bye bye.